again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CPHR Leaders Lounge. Joining me today is Angela Champ, CPHR, Senior Vice President, HR at Alpine Building Maintenance. Angela Champ is an HR executive and author of 2 books, including the Canadian bestseller, The Squiggly Line Career, How Changing Professions Can Advance a Career in Unexpected Ways. She has worked in diverse industries, including insurance, banking, engineering, oil and gas, construction, and retail, and is currently the Senior Vice President, Human Resources for Alpine Building Maintenance. She also serves as the President of Lean in Canada, Vancouver chapter. Angela was named as Top 20 HR Leader in Canada in 2020 and on the Most Inclusive HR Influencer list in 2020 and 2021, and was a finalist for the Leadership Agency HR Leader of the Year Award in 2020. Welcome, Angela, and thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me. Really glad to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Angela, I'd like to start our discussion by asking you about remote work and what has happened in the past year. So, how has remote work impacted the productivity and innovation of your organization?
Thank you. I actually would like to start with an acknowledgement to say that I'm on the shared and unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and I'm very grateful to be talking to you today from this area. So remote working in my organization, we're a commercial cleaning company across Canada, and the majority of our employees are frontline workers. They're the people that you see in the airports, in the malls, in commercial buildings, in retail stores that are helping to give people the confidence, whether it's employees or customers or the public, to go into the buildings during this pandemic and feel safe that it's clean and safe to do so. So the majority of our employees are actually frontline workers and not remote. However, we do have a group of employees who are remote, particularly the corporate employees. And in most cases, I would say productivity at worst has stayed the same and at best has actually improved. And I think that it has improved because people feel like they have a choice of whether to come into the office or work from home. We actually do give people that option here in our BC-based office. And so by having that choice and allowing people to have that freedom, what I find is that people are actually giving, in some cases, more than 100%. And so our productivity has not decreased. In fact, if I can say that we actually have a different problem, we have trouble having our employees shut things down at the end of the day. You know, when you're working from home, you're either at your kitchen table or at a designated desk, or in some cases, sitting on your bed with your laptop in your lap. And it's easy to let the workday go through the entire day. And so we actually have the opposite problem. We want people to take the appropriate rest breaks and turn it off at the end of the day so that they're recharging appropriately.
Of course, Angela. In fact, this weekend, in fact, today, the Globe and Mail had a great article on the right to disconnect, essentially.
Yes.
People feeling that they're on all the time, 12 hours a day, and as you say, the work has become the office, and vice versa.
Very much.
That is something I think the government should probably look at in terms of bringing up some type of legislation to allow someone to be able to disconnect rightfully. So that's great. I can understand that, and I'm glad to hear that your organization has actually improved productivity. But the fact that you can't get together, I guess, on a regular basis, what have you done to manage employee morale during this so-called Zoom world?
A lot of organizations were already accustomed to working nationally across time zones or even in different countries. And so for a lot of organizations, including ours, the fact that people are remote or distributed has not been that much of a challenge. And it's always been important to make sure that morale and engagement is kept up when you don't have everybody in the same room. Of course, having people face to face and having people literally collide at the water cooler really makes a difference in terms of sparking fresh ideas, innovations, allowing people to have that chit chat, to catch up and get to know each other and form those relationships. So you have to be much more deliberate when you're talking with a fully remote or fully distributed workforce. So some of the things that we've been doing is for sure having regular team meetings so that we can talk about the work that's on our plates and what we're doing, whether we're talking about leads and needs. So here's some things that is happening with me if anybody wants to participate, or here's some things that I'm working on. I need some help. So who can help me out with that? Also, making sure that we give time for chit chat and catching up, and also celebrating life moments, whether we're talking about somebody bought a new home, or somebody's newly pregnant, or somebody just had a baby, somebody's about to get married. Really make sure that we're celebrating those in whatever way that we can. But more tactically, it's also about making sure that you're showing appreciation for the people and the work that they're doing, and helping them connect that work to a greater purpose, that their work matters, regardless of the role that you have in our organization. Part of keeping people's morale and engagement up is really helping them to connect as to why the work that they do, even if it's one piece in a bigger cog, really matters to the rest of the organization.
Have you seen any impact on the culture thus far, or you're still seeing a very strong culture?
Working from home has been really new for Alpine on the corporate side. It's we have a small corporate office, and because our employees are mostly frontline, we haven't really had that. So it's really been new since the pandemic. So there is a change in the culture, in that people are making more of an effort to connect with their colleagues over Teams, over Zoom, over a phone call, because it's not like you can just turn your head and see that they're sitting right beside you if you have a question, or if you want to bounce some ideas off of them. So certainly the culture has been more of reaching out, deliberately reaching out, and making time for each other that way.
That's great. That's great. I mean, here we are, Thursday come April 1st. And as we turned the calendar this January, everyone thought, okay, different year, better year, goodbye 2020. But as I said, Thursday's April 1, and we look around, and we see cases, growing and in fact setting new records in some provinces, Ontario being one, and British Columbia nearing its highest level. I mean, it's clearly not easy, and vaccines have rolled out. So how do you help deliver hope and purpose to your team when the future is still so uncertain for so many?
I think we're luckier than most because of the industry that we're in, which is commercial cleaning. Our employees, frontline and corporate office, really do feel a sense of purpose. The work that we do, whether we're in human resources or marketing or finance, or actually on the front line, really helps to contribute to that confidence that people have in going into their workspaces, if it's a commercial building, into a mall, into their local grocery store, into their government office that might be open, because they have confidence that it's clean and sanitized. And so for us, it's been a little bit easier, because the work that we do is so truly impacted by COVID, and giving people the confidence that they can go into a building or to a workplace and feel safe. Of course, with all of the other precautions that are required, socially distancing, wearing masks, washing your hands, sanitizing where you can. The work that our employees do just adds that one extra layer of confidence. And all of our employees, whether it's in the corporate office or frontline, really do take pride in being part of that. So we are very fortunate in that that's the industry that we're in.
That's great. And I know you touched on this a few minutes ago when you spoke about the various opportunities that you're offering your group for interaction, but because maintaining visibility and influence within the organization is very limited, obviously before you might have staff meetings or get together with groups, but how have you been able to, I guess, get the employees to interact with one another, or providing them opportunities to be able to, lead, influence, and, even discuss, and brainstorm for ideas for the future? How have you done that?
So we've introduced or are introducing a couple of things at Alpine that are new for us at this organization. One is we've been started doing virtual town halls, where we include people from British Columbia, across Canada, where we have offices and employees, really talking to them about our vision and purpose, and what we're planning to do in the year as we are growing, and introducing new people, new leaders into our organization. That gives the employees and the managers an opportunity to get to know the leadership team, but also to ask questions about what Alpine's doing and where we're going and how they might play a role in that. Some other things that we're doing is in April, we'll be introducing a leadership development program, and we've done a bit of a soft launch where we've had a couple of sessions and invited people to participate. And so, having people together to talk about whatever leadership topic that we're studying at that moment, and then having a chance to for them to talk about how it impacts them and how they can do their jobs day to day, how to get ideas from their peers about how they might be implementing some of these ideas, is another way that keeps people connected and motivated. And as I mentioned earlier, just making sure that we're having regular team meetings, regular one-on-one check-ins, but also celebrating the important moments and milestones of our employees' lives, whether that's moving, buying a new house, having a new baby, getting married, all of those important things that make up the totality of a person's life.
I love that. That's great, because one of the things we've seen, obviously, as HR leaders, is that where employees have suffered is they've missed that learning and development opportunity, the professional development. Many have turned to do so on their own, looking at webinars and symposiums and so on online. But it's nice when it's supported by an employer, and it's great to hear that you're doing that to convince individuals and help individuals grow. Because we never stop growing and learning, as you know. So
no, if we're not learning, if we're not growing, we're dying. So I fully support that.
That so much as well. Angela, everyone's talking about the future of work. What's it going to look like down the road? I've been interviewed a few times, and they've asked me those questions, and I'm sure you have too. But what are your thoughts on how it could look? I mean, will we ever go back to what we had, and what will be forever changed in your opinion?
I hope we don't go back fully to what we had, because what we had was good, but not great for everybody. And this pandemic has forced a lot of organizations to really think about their philosophy about work, about face time, about having the bums in the seats, and also to look at what work actually adds value to an organization and what's been done just because we've always done it that way. And so, for the organizations that are progressive and thoughtful and really seeing this as an opportunity to improve their organization within their industry, within Canada or wherever they're doing business, really they should be looking at what opportunities technology can help leverage. So not just things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Skype and all of those, but how can you use technology to really make your work better, and where you can do it anywhere where it's possible to do so, of course. How can you give your employees choices? I think some of the importance of work, we started having these conversations about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more within human resources, around talking about the options of remote work. And there were two camps, right? Either people who were like, yes, we should do remote work, and others were like, we'll never do remote work. Well, certainly the pandemic has changed people's perceptions, or at least their begrudging acceptance of it. But I think that the future of work will look at how you can give people choice, both your employees and candidates. For some organizations are saying once the pandemic's over, everybody's going to have to come to work back in the office full time. Others are saying even after this pandemic's over, we're going to have 100% fully remote working options. And those extremes may not work for every employee or every candidate. And what we're going to find is that employees are going to look around and see what choices they have, and join organizations that best suit their temperament. For example, I'm not a person who would love to work remotely 100% of the time. In fact, I would actually hate it. And so if we were working 100% of the time, I might even look for somebody that would give me the option to collide with people in person. For others, working remotely 100% has allowed them to thrive and bloom and really take charge of their productivity and their work. And so I think giving choice is going to be important for the future of work, for sure. And I think we're going to see that a lot of organizations are going to be a lot stricter on sort of the fluff or the fat around work. And I don't mean downsizing. I'm talking about really looking at the processes they have in place, and the way that work is done, and saying, does this still serve our purposes to do it this way, or is there a better way where we can streamline it, still get the work done, and allow our employees to have much better home work integration or homework balance?
Which has been a big, as you know, been precursor prior to the COVID pandemic, people were looking for, better
That's right.
balance. And I think this has shown that it can be done. But I agree. I think the hybrid is what we're going to likely see more and more. And you're right. So many employees do want to come back.
That's right.
Organizations. It's not easy. At the end of the day, we are human beings. We want to connect with each other. And I think that's been the hardest part, having to do this via Zoom like we're doing today, as opposed to being together across from each other, maybe 6 feet away, but nonetheless being live instead of.
That's right.
Zoom.
That's right.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about leadership, because this past year has shown us, the strong organizations have had tremendous leaders, and those who struggled, perhaps their leadership, whether it be at the top or middle management, suffered somewhat. But, can you share some examples of what you think good leadership looks like during this pandemic?
Yes, for sure. So good leadership during this pandemic, and I might even argue all the time, is one where we're able to show appreciation for our employees and really help them tie their work to the purpose of the organization or how their work matters, whether it matters just to one person or whether it matters to the entire organization, really helping the employees see and connect the dots as to how their work matters, I think is a very good leadership skill to have. Making sure that people feel connected. I often say that employee engagement is about three things. It's about feeling connected, so connected to one another and to your colleagues, to the organization. It's about feeling competent, so really being able to do work or learn work that makes you feel like you can actually do and achieve things, and make you feel like you're contributing, that your work is actually makes a difference to whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So really good leadership is about helping create that employee engagement through the connection, contributing, and competence for the employees. And I'm also going to say that good leadership is also role modeling by demonstrating self-care as a leader. So making sure that as a leader, you're resting, that you're taking time off, that you're not connected 24/7, because employees take their cues from the leaders. And if they see that you're not taking care of yourself, how can you possibly be taking care of others? Or how can they feel like they can take care of themselves? There's a reason why on the airplane, they tell you to put your own oxygen masks on first before you assist others. And I think good leadership also means taking good care of yourself, taking those breaks when you need it, unplugging when you should, whatever is appropriate for your industry or for your organization, turning off on the weekends or at nights, whatever it is that you can do. I think that demonstrates strong leadership as well.
Role modeling, essentially.
Absolutely.
That's a great, good point. Last question for you, Angela, and this is, I think, very appropriate in the environment we're living in today. But a lot's happened this past year, right? Obviously the pandemic, has also shone a light, if you will, on racial inequalities and to living and working in relative isolation for so many. It's been a very, very difficult year, and it's put a spotlight on it, as you know. But what's the last year been like for you and in your environment and what you've seen? You do a lot of, consulting with a lot of organizations, but what's been your take on all of this?
I've always been interested in the issues of diversity, inclusion, and social justice. Very early in my career, in my early 20s, which was 2-3 years ago.
Great.
Okay, you laughed a little too hard on that one. I wrote a course on diversity, which ended up winning an award. And so very early on, I had an interest in diversity and inclusion. And my master's thesis I wrote on attracting Indigenous employees to the organization that I was studying. And certainly this pandemic has shown that there's a lot of inequalities beyond that. People don't always have access to technology, to Wi-Fi, to a good space. They might have issues with childcare or elder care. And so as somebody said, I heard this recently, we're all in the same ocean, but we're not all in the same boat. And those issues have been really important to me my entire life. Certainly this year for me, it has really demonstrated that there's a lot of room for improvement around equality, whether it's through truth and reconciliation, whether it's through employees day to day having equal access to technology and career opportunities, issues, or whether it's issues like Black Lives Matter or other social justice issues. And what it has meant for me is that I acknowledge that I have a role to play in this. I have a role to play in it by how I speak up, how I show up, how I support other people, whatever influence I might have, how I can use that for a greater good. So for me, it's been a lot of reflection as well as a lot of work on how we can help to reduce that inequality or inequity, and help increase the sense of justice for the issues that are out there.
Yeah, you're so right, Angela. I think as leaders and other leaders who are watching this or will watch this, I think we do have an obligation because, we can carry a message very loud, and it's very important that, we do speak to it and address it, and where possible influence the change. The two, you mentioned two items that, for example, not everyone has high-speed Wi-Fi, never mind Wi-Fi.
Right.
And you mentioned that as one of the critical elements. We as CPHR have lobbied the government in its most recent budget to ensure they look at that. As you know, women have been largely affected in this past year because of the pandemic. They've lost jobs. They're the largest in terms of contingent, and they've been affected the most compared to males. Anyhow, they have, and it hasn't been easy. Childcare being an issue for so many women, as you know, who've had to likely leave jobs to stay home. It hasn't been easy to do that, and not right to begin with. So all of these concerns, I think it's very important that we really speak to them, and we have as an organization, but we have to do more as leaders, as you mentioned, because it's so critical.
I agree 100%. And like you said, it's not just one answer to whatever issue you mentioned about women and how they've been impacted in the workplace. And as you mentioned during the introduction, I'm with Lean in Canada Vancouver chapter, so it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart for sure. And so it's never just one solution or one answer. It's technology and lobbying the government for access to Wi-Fi or technology. It's about childcare. It's about how we're supporting the schools and make sure the schools have the funding to help the students. It's about what community services are available. So it's not just one answer. It needs to be, the entire village needs to take a role in raising our children and our adults. And so I'm so glad to hear that CPHR is lobbying the government to help influence. Human resources professionals have such an opportunity to influence for the greater good, and we should all be taking advantage of that influence to
Yeah.
do it individually and collectively. So I agree with you
And
100%.
I love your comment. We're all in the same ocean, but not in the same boat.
Yeah.
I've had this issue myself when I hear everyone say we're all in it together. No, we're all in it together, but unequally because we're all
Right.
in a different leg. Tell someone who's on a yacht somewhere in the Caribbean that
That's right.
it's far from it. So
That's right.
resources, and so I think we really have to do more, as you say, to really help those who are not. Let's call it the word privileged, or because there's a lot
That's
of
right.
privilege, as we know. So. Angela, this has been great. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and also for giving some insight on your company and your organization and how they're helping us, recover and ultimately get us back to some degree of comfort if we have to go back to work. And even for some of us that do, I actually go into the office every day, albeit most of my fellow colleagues and associates that don't come in. They've been working from home for over a year, but I enjoy coming in. I've got so much of my things here, and that gives me some degree of normality, but it hasn't been, I know, for so many. But thank you so much, Angela, for taking
You're
the
welcome.
time. It's really been appreciated. And I'm sure, our CPHR members and associates across Canada will really love to hear what you have to say.
Thank
So,
you for having me. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
thank you, Angela. Stay well and be well. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye.